Hi guys, Colesy, and again today we're talking about the Mad Box. In my last video, people kind of assumed that I was hating on the Mad Box. And that's not the case necessarily. Like, I want them to do well. I wish them all the best and I hope they do well with it. I'm just slightly concerned. However, the one thing that I definitely didn't like was the design of the Mad Box. I said multiple times I was not a fan of how it looked, at least their current design. Since then, there's been a few updates on the Mad Box, so I figured why not take a look at them and see how things have changed, and maybe now I'm all for it and I love the design. Yeah, let's take a look at it. So, what I've done here is we have loaded up the Twitter of Ian Bell, who seems to be the guy who is talking the most about the Mad Box and is sort of tweeting about it, tweeting the images. He seems to be our source for Mad Box information. This is the design that we saw last time. Not a fan of it. Like I said, looks a lot like a gaming computer, and I feel like it doesn't really fit into like a living room environment like majority of games consoles today do. It seems to be a bit of an eyesore and looks like a high-end gaming PC, and it wouldn't really fit in a lot of people's living rooms. It's kind of a bit garish on the eyes. However, things have changed. So let's have a look at the other designs and things that we have been told from Ian Bell's Twitter since last time. So, there we have all the colors. All independent developers on Earth will be handed a cross-platform, almost one-click export engine deployed against PC. Porting time will be minimal for those who have their own engine. The engine will be totally free. So this is a thing that they have spoken about before, is that the engine for the Mad Box will be sort of free for developers, which is a good thing and not something I know a hell of a lot about because I'm not a games developer. But if it means that we get more cool games, again, I'm all for it. I am in support of this console. I'm just slightly concerned about will it be successful, and I don't want it to be unsuccessful and have a negative impact on the company and the way they make the games that they make at the minute. I don't want them to release this, it failed, they spent a lot of money on it, and it screws over their whole game development system. I don't want that to happen. That's my concern. Anyway, so also, he talks about here, the Mad Box has a one-press deployable, I can't say that word. The Mad Box has a one-press deployable carry handle between the ends. So this is obviously talking about the current design. He was talking about a carry handle. So here we have 5 designs of carry handles. Now, I have no problem with, the console having a carry handle. That's just a good thing. Sometimes you move your console around and you carry things. Even PCs, they get moved about. It makes sense. Out of the 5, which is my favorite, I kind of like this one the furthest on the right. It does seem like it would break though, so maybe something more like these two seem a bit more robust. And they seem to like, they're like bigger handles, and they seem like they slide in and they slide out, and they like seem like they would do that seamlessly and it would look nice. But yeah, I guess having a carry handle is not a bad thing, but still, I'm not a fan of this design. This person is not wrong. It does look like it's a thing you put bowling balls on. It looks like you would see this at a bowling alley. Also, think about like, what about if you spill something on it? Like you spill a drink. Now you shouldn't be spilling a drink on a console anyway. It'll go through the vents. It'll ruin it. I get that. But like, if you spill, it's just going to go in that dip surely and like sit in that dip. If that dip's not got any ventilation, it's literally going to sit there and fill it with crap, like bits of like dust, and oh, it'd be horrible. It'd be terrible. I don't like it. One of our much less out there designs with standard cooling. Okay, so this is okay. This is just it's just a cube. It's inoffensive. It's got this little light. I like that. That's nice. What are the images we got? Okay, so we got off, transport, okay, on, and performance. Okay, so it's off and transport. I don't really, oh, I see. There's a tiny little, can you see it there? If you can see, there's a tiny little like bit that pops out, and that's a handle. So that makes sense. So often, yeah, that's good. That's a good way to have a handle. I like that. On, it's like the back has slightly come open to show the sort of blue line, and obviously the front is lit up. And then performance, it's like slid all the way off, which I assume just means that it's got more, the inside has more access to the air so it can cool better. That's why it's performance, because it needs to like suck in more air to cool. That's not a bad design. I don't hate that. That's actually quite nice. And it's not ugly. It works. It makes sense. I like this. This is nice. I could live with that in my living room. It's no worse than like a Switch dock sat there. It's no worse than that. It's a little bit larger because obviously it's like a cube shape. It's not your classic sort of rectangular box that slides into a shelf, but it's not awful. It's considerably better than the first design they had. And so now we get on to apparently design concept 4. Now this is a lot more standard console looking. It's like your rectangular box that slides into a shelf, which is exactly what I said. It's like inoffensive. It does look kind of cool. It's got a wall mount and you can mount it vertically. So it's kind of like an old 360, I guess. I don't see anybody doing that with an Xbox One. Everybody with an Xbox One, it sits that way. It doesn't go vertically. But the old Xbox 360s, you could have those upright or laying down. That was okay, I guess. I don't mind that personally. I'd have it horizontally just because I like the look of it and it fits in a shelf better. But maybe there's a specific situation where you want it vertically or wall mounted. If it's, people do it. People mount computers to walls. I have no issue with it. It's up to the person individually, but I definitely prefer this design. Oh, it's got different colors. Okay, that's pretty cool. Can change according to app, game, box orientation. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's RGB. You can't. I mean, a lot of people like RGB. I'm not bothered by it personally, but I don't mind having it. Customization, backplate, theme, game, movie, pattern, carbon fiber. Okay, so there's a lot more customization you can have, they reckon, with this one. Again, it's a nice thing to have. I'm not really bothered, but it's not a bad thing to have, I guess. People being able to make it a bit more their own. It's not a bad thing. It does kind of, I know obviously they are the developers of Project Cars, and it does have sort of a car, supercar-y vibe to it. That is actually not a bad design. I don't mind that so much. That's pretty good. That would fit in a shelf. It's not ugly. It's not offensive. It's not in your face. Do they still have the carry handle? Doesn't seem to be. Doesn't seem to have a carry handle still, but I guess because it looks kind of slim and that, you don't really need a carry handle because it is quite small and maneuverable on its own. I guess so. The public have spoken and we've listened. This is the design we're going with. Ah, okay. It might be slightly amended over some time. Yeah, okay. No, well, that definitely makes sense. That definitely makes sense. People definitely prefer the sort of classic console look of being sort of a box that you lay horizontally or vertically or wall mounted, but people seem to prefer this overall, and I think this is genuinely the best design. I quite like the box actually. I would have been okay with that box that sort of opened, but it does seem slightly more complicated and it's probably not as effective for cooling the way it is, because it didn't seem to have any intakes on the front. It was only that openy up side bit that seemed to have any cooling on it, but I'm quite happy with this. It's not the worst looking. It looks pretty good. It fit in most people's living rooms and wouldn't be offensive to anyone. So it's not bad looking. It looks like it. I mean, it looks like it could have enough cooling as long as they have enough of that in there. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That's not bad. That's not bad. And I think the public have made the right decision. Okay, so this is just a short. It's just like a little video GIF. Okay, that's just showing us how it transitions between the colors. I don't mind it. I mean, I hope that it would be optional and you could turn it off if you wanted, or just pick a specific color. It doesn't have to be a color for depending on what app or game or whatever you're playing. But I don't know. It's not bad. It's not awful. And the last thing we have is actually completely new information. Is a controller. So let's have a look at this. So. Okay, so let's compare. Let me just pick up an Xbox controller for a second. Okay, so Xbox controller. So obviously the sticks are in the same place as they are on an Xbox controller. You've got one up and left and one sort of lower right. So I prefer that to the PlayStation personally. I prefer them to be at are diagonal to each other, not next to each other. We've got a D-pad. That looks fine. We've got some sort of screen there that says play on connected with your battery. No problem with that. We've got A, B, X, Y. It seems to be laid out the same as it is on an Xbox controller, so that's good. Because the problem is, with having a Switch, a PlayStation, and an Xbox, the buttons are all laid out differently. And I understand they have to be because they're different companies and they have to do it differently. But it's confusing because then if you switch from playing a lot of Xbox and then you go to like the Switch and it's like press B, you end up pressing the wrong button all the time because you forget where B is on the Switch. You're thinking where B is on an Xbox controller, and the same happens when you like switch back and forth. Obviously, PlayStation's a little bit different because they do actually have different buttons. They've got triangle, circle, square, and like X. So they are different buttons. It's especially confusing when you go from Nintendo Switch or any Nintendo to an Xbox because they have the same buttons but in different places. It's very confusing. So I'm glad that at least they've picked one rather than being like completely weird and putting them all in different places again. So we'd have three different combinations of exactly the same button. So this kind of like openness here looks a bit weird. And like this looks really like pointy and thin, this like trigger I guess it is. That does look a bit strange, and it does sort of look like longer this way. Like it's gonna come out extra here compared to an Xbox controller, but I don't know. It's not the worst looking. Let's look at some other pictures. Okay, it's slowly getting worse looking. They're very square looking. It looks really weird. I guess it matches the console, but the open bottom I don't like. It looks a bit odd. I don't mind the light in there. It looks a bit strange, and they look very cubed controllers. Those triggers look way too thin. That looks weird. They look like they're gonna snap off instantly. I feel like they need to be connected to the back to be like a little thicker, just so they're not. They just really. I mean, they could be made of like really strong material, but I feel like they just look so thin that they're gonna snap. Oh, this is cool. So this whole like, the whole panel appears to be a screen. This whole thing, like with the buttons on, seems to be a screen because it's circling this button and saying boost available here. Obviously that's for a racing game. I like the way that they've like implemented like the speedometer and the gears in there. That's pretty cool. We didn't see this before. You got it looks like a touchscreen menu button and like select button, whatever you want to call it. They seem to be there, but they seem to not be physical buttons, which is okay. Yeah, this is more. This top right seems to be more for like a shooter or something like that. Again, doesn't look bad. It's not bad looking, and being able to have the full keyboard on there might be good because a lot in the past you've had to buy like an extra little adapter to stick onto your controller to be able to use a full keyboard without having to just select each letter individually, which is a little bit annoying. But I don't know how well that's going to work because if you can try and think about having like a keyboard here, I guess it would only be the size of like a phone keyboard, so it might not be too bad actually typing on it. It wouldn't be too. You could kind of type with your thumbs. That wouldn't be awful. That's not a bad idea if they can pull that off. That might be okay. You don't really know until you try it. That's the thing. So I don't hate that. That's actually not a bad idea. There seems to be a speaker sort of near the logo down here, but I like the idea that the whole thing is a screen. That's pretty cool because I like the way they've used, like, especially in the racing, and they've used it actually on the shooter by the looks of things, that it can physically point to a button for you and be like, this is the button you want to press. So I quite like that. That's not bad. We've got a little bit more about the triggers. So they're calling them precision triggers. I'm not entirely sure what that means. It looks like it's going to fold all the way back, like to touch the back of the controller. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but for a racing game, I guess, because it can be like the accelerator and you can pull it back a bit or you can pull it back slightly. And it does give you more precision, I guess, because you can pull it, you've got more angle to pull, so you can pull it like, floor it is like right back and pull it to the back of the controller, but then you've got all that space, gives you a bit more accuracy. So I guess so, but that, I'm not sure that works with every game, that's the difference. And it's got rear paddles, so it's kind of more like an Xbox One Elite controller with the extra paddles on the back. So that might be good. That might be a good thing to have, a few extra buttons. So overall, actually, with the updates, I'm actually quite happy with the updates. They've fixed the design, which was the one thing that I really did dislike. I really didn't like the design they had at the minute with that big M-shaped thing. I really didn't like that. So I'm glad they fixed that. They seem to have decided that they're definitely going to go for this more standard console look. The controls was something that I didn't expect we were going to get to have a look at. Obviously, all these things can change in time, and it could be years before the actual console comes out, or there's any sort of finalized prototype that they're actually putting out and showing to people. But it's not awful. There are some things that I'd like to get hands-on with the controller to feel what it felt like, and those triggers especially, because they did look very skinny. And just the controller is a little bit of a different shape, but not too different to like an Xbox controller, so I like that. So actually, I'm fairly happy with how it's going so far. Like, the way the design has changed, it's looking good, and it's making me more look forward to it, actually. It looks really interesting. I'd definitely like to check it out if/when it releases. You know, like I said, I'm not against the idea of this console. I'm just concerned, and I don't want it to affect them making the good games that they make. And I understand, like, PC is not for everyone, because I would recommend most people do some PC gaming. It's awesome. I understand it's not for everyone, and that's fine. So console gaming, maybe there's a new console coming. Maybe it's going to be good. I hope it's going to do well. I hope it's going to be successful, and I hope it doesn't hurt their business. But we'll just have to see. But yeah, so far I think it's looking good. If you'd like me to do more videos on the Madbox when there's more updates that come out, then please do let me know. I think that it looks really cool, and I think they actually are putting a lot of thought into this. Because when they first came out with that M-shaped thing, I was like, this is weird looking, isn't it? How's this gonna go? But actually, they seem to have refined things a bit, and it's coming together a little bit more. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you did enjoy it. Let me know what you think of the Madbox. Do you think it's gonna be successful? What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? What do you think to these updates that they've brought to us so far? I'd like to know what you guys think. So, anyway, thank you guys, and I will see you next time.